Hey, what's up? Back at you with another video. I hope you're good. It's been some time. I am coming back slowly onto the camera again. We're going to be looking at a video here. It says Penny Lebyane and Lungelo KM on his show Engineer Your Life. Lungelo KM is somebody who, at the beginning of his journey, I met him when his podcast was still around 10,000 subscribers. I came across him and the two of us had a conversation on my podcast. I got to know the brother, and thereafter, a number of times, I would meet him, work with him, sometimes be a cameraman behind Engineer Your Life. So that's where I've been. I've been a crew member on Engineer Your Life, and I'm glad for the brother's success. So let's quickly listen to a snippet of this video. It's on TikTok, and we're going to have a conversation. Penny Lebyane is speaking about the campaign which has been successful to intoxicate the black person and more so the young black woman. So let's listen to a piece and I'll give you some context with regards to me, and I'll pose some questions to her.
Why are you selling alcohol to everyone when you know very well that you're dumbing down the nation? I can talk about when South African women started being targeted to be consumers and sellers of alcohol. We never used to be selling alcohol and influencers for alcohol and buying expensive alcohol.
Fully targeted right now.
We were fully targeted for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
For the last 10 years. Let's pause right there for a moment. Here's something that is extremely, extremely impressive for me listening to this. I'm amazed, actually, at the honesty, because I never thought that somebody like says Penny Lebyane or anyone who is famous or has enjoyed fame in South Africa would ever say. I never thought she would ever be this honest about how a propaganda, a programming of a sort has taken place. And she would know this because as a media person, as a radio and TV talk show host, she knows advertising, she reads ads, she knows sponsors of their shows, she knows how the radio station makes money, and she understands that all of it here is a game of attention. It's the desire to occupy a person's mind and to give them a direction, because people come onto the earth without much of an operating system. I've got children. If you look at a child, you know that there's emptiness in there and it needs to be filled. You know that there's the basic mechanism that is waiting to receive instructions, and then the machine will follow. So programming doesn't only happen to us as children. It happens to us even into our adulthood. And so I thought to myself, I've seen this programming. There's a lot of information out there. You hear about the Illuminati, you hear about secret societies, you hear about things called psyopses, psychological operations, where a billionaire, somebody rich with some money, can hire some actors, and these actors can start to pump out a message aggressively, and they will sustain this for a long period of time, like a bombing, a continuous bombing. And then after 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years or so of just keeping their head down, they start to realize that people are being conditioned. People's behaviors are now changing. Those who went from being teenagers to adults within that time have grasped the programming. They now live by it and they don't really realize it. So I thought Penny Lebyane is somebody who would never admit to being a part of that. And she's not actually admitting to be a part of it. She's now, maybe as she's growing, she's becoming more conscious as she looks back in retrospect. Maybe now she's slowly coming to admit what she's been doing. But for now, she's pointing out at those people. I don't know who those people are. Maybe she's talking about the ones who own the liquor industry, the ones who actually pay the radio station and the radio station then gives her instructions. Maybe she's, distancing herself a bit, not fully taking accountability. I don't really know. But I appreciate this because I really thought there's a code of conduct, or no, not a code of conduct, a vow of secrecy that you take if you participate in this system of conscientizing people. Because the people being conscientized don't really know it. The ones who are doing it know it. I myself, being in front of a mic, being in front of camera, know how influential I can be. I know how people can take me extremely seriously because I am passionate and I'm, in a nice setup. My lens has got this situation looking all nice, and people can idolize and take my influence very easily. So I try to be a good influence. I thought there's a vow of secrecy among the people who know how vulnerable people are and how powerful their message is. I thought there's a hush that you can never say. When you're hired at a radio station, just do your part. This is how human beings are engineered, Over time, when you see the destruction happen, keep your eyes down, don't say much about it. Or when you do, point fingers at others and never really say, hey, look, this is something that I got into. But here she is, she's speaking. And I'm going to bring this to another kind of programming which I witnessed myself. Many of us have. And it's the programming of the male Black South African into homosexuality, homosexual content making its way into TV at an alarming rate at some point, in line with the entertainment industry and Hollywood's attempt at bringing it and spreading it across the world. There was a coincidence there. Gay content and the acceptance of a gay lifestyle and the turning to homosexuality accelerated at some point. We all saw it. And that's the question that I have to ask her. If you've observed that programming of intoxication, is it intoxication? Did you not see when the male masculine was being effeminized? What is your awareness about that? What can you tell us about that? And no disrespect to Lungelo KM there. I know Lungelo is a homosexual man and he's somebody who interviews quite a lot of homosexual people on there. And later, at another stage, maybe in another video, we will come to ask him some questions as well about the impact of his show, the impact of the LGBTQ movement, the LGBTQ Pride Parade, the Pride Month. What impact does he actually see and observe? As he's seeing an increase in homosexuality coinciding with an aggressive marketing of it, him being a homosexual man, does he still hold to the myth, I call it a myth, that says everyone who is gay is born gay? I think at this point that should be getting debunked. Firstly, when homosexuality and things are new to us, we don't understand them. We hear those who claim to be born that way, saying they are born that way. You see, there's a few gay people in society, and then suddenly there's an acceleration in marketing. There's a rights movement across the world and a promotion of homosexuality, and then at a rapid rate, there's now many more gay men around. When Lungelo sees that, as a man who respects himself and knows his story about how his sexuality came to be as it is, how does he feel about men who are being turned? And some, I'd say, are turned by, we all know this, that happens, unfortunately, in the homes perpetuated by men who are in the closet, who then are boys in the home. And then those young men, psychologically something takes shape and they go on to become actors of what they experienced, repeaters of it, or merely living it in their life, not in an abusive way, but maybe in consensual exchanges. Not saying everyone who gets this goes on to, but I'm saying, yes, this is known. There are statistics of men who share stories when they finally get to grips in their adult years. For example, there was a conference of former gay men who stood on stage and spoke about how they took an honest look back at how they came to be homosexual. And a lot of it stemmed from single mother parenting, boys who assimilated their mothers who were very strong and there was no strong father figure, or mother figures who hated masculine men, the fathers of the children. And so the mother would take out anger on the male child because that child reminds them of their father who may have been an abuser. So this child grows up knowing that as my masculinity shows up, my mama rises with aggression to combat me. So she hates masculinity and any sign of it, and she likes me conform to my sisters. So I start to,
I was born to a mother who had me at 15 years old. My home was very dysfunctional. It was abusive and dysfunctional. I actually seen my father put his hands on my mom, and it left mental scars and emotional scars in me. It got to the point where my dad ended up abandoning us, and that left me really, really sad. As a young child, I can only remember wanting to have a relationship with my father, and continually him not showing up and being there was very tragic to me. So I grew up with a single mom, and she was one of my only influence. And I was the guy who was not into sports. I was not going to get dirty. I was like, that's not for me. I want to dance, I want to sing, and I want to be an actor. And I never had the desire to be a homosexual, but it wasn't until people started calling me homosexual. It wasn't until they started planting these seeds and saying, hey, you like hair, you like to dance, you over there with the cheerleaders instead of with the football players, you're homosexual. And so that began to create a curiosity. I already suffered emotional wounds from my dad not being there, that abandonment, and I was looking for male affirmation. For most of my teen years, I was abused by a close family member, physically abused, which led to more pain and more hurt. And so I dove into the lifestyle. I really gave myself over to promiscuity. By the time I was 18, I was stripping. I was living in the nightlife, drinking every night, partying from Sunday to Sunday. I knew there had to be more, and then I encountered the love of God. And he came in and radically changed my life. The person you see here today is not the person I used to be. I am changed. I am fulfilled. I'm living my best life. I'm smiling and I'm dancing and loving life. And I want to tell the government that you cannot make decisions that will block people who were like me, who needed change and who wanted change to find freedom.
And when I got to kindergarten, my mother and my father, they decided to take me out of school. And I was taken out of school for a total of 8 years. And during that time, I was tortured by my mother. My mother was very hurt by men, and so any sign of masculinity was a trigger and a threat to her. I can remember her beating me with a wire hanger until I was bloody and putting alcohol all over my body as I stood in front of a mirror. And I learned at that moment that I could not be masculine. I learned that I had to be effeminate. I had to emulate my sisters to avoid triggering her and so that I could survive.
I'm saying, with all of this knowledge of how conditioning and programming is so strong, and now I'm talking more about the conditioning from the media, from advertising, from content that just hits you, ads with guys kissing. I'm talking about the influence that is not of the abuse kind. That comes from radio. That comes from the airwaves. That comes from NGOs that pay for those ads. Activities and activism. Signage that is paid for by some board or panel of people who say that this is advocacy. And they are not saying this is promotion of people to become homosexuals. What does Lungelo have to say about this current conditioning that still is continuing? And in a way, he is now currently Penny Lebyane. He's very relevant. Penny is still, quite an industry player, has cemented herself as a legend. But you can see them now both sitting there together as influential people who are influencing currently, talking about the influence of others. And I want to say, just pause. Sure, we're listening to you and the influence of past, but what about the influence currently? What accountability and prevention measures can we take against influences that we're seeing today and we're sure we'll be regretting 10 years down the line? Can we sort ourselves out? Can we bring ourselves out of the spell, the zombieing that is happening? Can we stop creating it ourselves? Can we be responsible? I mean, the content that I've listened to on Lungelo's pod, bro, some of it is, like really scary. There was a Sangoma guy with dreadlocks there who said he was a pastor and he was having a husband and a side cock and he was a preacher.
Okay, beke mncane, nginama questions. Guilt, yes. Okay. Guilt, yes. Lo mntwana mncane but sengiyamthanda and nayo into azenzayo kunothando lana. Hey mara lo mntwana I think ulingana ne-firstborn yami. Yabona into esinjengalezo. Sihlale hayi nje uthi yazini ngizomjola mkhulisa angizogijimela into ezokulala until ngibone ukuthi ikhona lento between nanaye or kuyikhona or umntana shame uzibonele umkhulu manje emlethele ilunch esikoleni. Of course bengekathi no uyayidinga leya lunch umntana ofuna istatus yabona njalo. Okay, ngisikhulisele yena sikhule guilty libili khona kuyakhulunywa obvious. Hayi wena ukwenzana lo baba uyakuyuza lo baba akakuthandi challenges uhlangana nazo uma umcheckile ubona abantu bebheka imoto automatically wena so guilty uthi marwari bathi ngihlala ngalomntwana. Into ezinjengalezo hayi into edagcina yenzeke njengoba sigcina sishada noLisiho.
And he was just really embracing this, and Lungelo was there defending the dude, promoting his philosophy and pointing in the direction to say, yeah, there's this Christian ideology that would be against what you are doing. So now people call out and say Christianity is the programming that you should be looking out for, that you should be careful of. It's the programming that denies this dear brother, Pastor Sangoma, who sleeps with two men, the opportunity to fully be himself and represent God. They say Christ is the one who is against this man. That's the programming to be afraid of. So when we're really warning people about programming in South Africa, the warning about programming is that of Christ. Nobody warns you about programming of intoxication, programming of debauchery, adultery, fornication, sexual perversion. It's a narcissistic world. Think those who know what that act is, they know it to be projection. It's when somebody knows that they are incredibly flawed, they are deeply, deeply steeped in sin and ugly behavior, and they love it. They don't want to get out, and they don't want to be judged for being in that position. So they will project and start pointing fingers now in their defense, saying, I'm going to point fingers at you. I'm going to say that you are the problem that I am, because I'm not willing to accept that I'm a problem. In fact, I embrace that I'm a problem. And so now you're just a bad guy who won't accept me for me and the influence that I bring. It's a strange thing. Psychologists and psychiatrists will tell you that narcissists are people who will point the finger at others while that problem is themselves. And it requires deep examination and people around you to say, hey, yo, bruh, Penny, you're saying people intoxicated a nation? You were right there at the mic. Hey, yo, KM, maybe 10 years down the line, we're going to be having low birth rates, etc. And looking back, we're going to say, yo, maybe that period where men-on-men action was on the come up, we missed out on serious opportunities to make children and occupy vital positions in South Africa. And it'll be a sad day seeing this cycle where you're the cause of the problem today and tomorrow you're crying about the problem. So I've made my case. That's been my concern. Let's just listen to the rest of this. Okay, pause here for a moment. I realized while I was editing the video that I forgot to quote somebody that I had called out for this kind of thing, being influential and also being a poison. It's Dineo Ranaka, and I'll cue her right here just now for you to listen to her back when I was criticizing her for promoting sex to young girls and then lambasting a pastor on her show and the church for preventing young girls from being engaged and getting slept with at a very young age.
Young boys by their fathers are encouraged, by some fathers, not all, and this is not a blanket generalization, right? Most young boys are encouraged to masturbate. when young girls touch themselves or even think to touch themselves down there, that's a naughty place, that's this, that's that. Why is it that religion has such a strong stance against things like masturbation and just a single human being's sexual expression?
So maybe because young girls will go from touching themselves to sleeping with boys at a young age and they'll get pregnant. And it'll lead maybe to high abortion rates. It'll lead to girls who are fucked up because an abortion isn't something that is beautiful. It's something that is horrible to the conscience and to your body, you see. So I don't know, is Dineo trying to give a solution to society, or is she trying to problematize a society? You know, pump it with more sex, pump it to younger girls, and never mind the consequences. Or when the consequences come, that's what allows you to be a radio personality. You're the counselor now, you know, so you created a problem on one end and now you go and catch it when it comes out the other end and you're like, hey, you know, sexual intimacy, you need to practice it like this. But at first you were like, why aren't we releasing it to all of these girls to have it? This is problematic, y'all. You see that? So now let's continue back to Penny Lebyane.
Now now we're the highest leading drinkers as females, and we come from a history where our grandmothers toit so that they must remove beer halls next to the station because our grandfathers would get off the station, buy alcohol instead of taking the money at home. So they already had dealt with a black man.
Sure.
So the next target was who was fighting to keep the family together. It was us. So now we're the ones who got it, and it started happening here in Sentin.
Very interesting. She's talking about the family dynamic as well, about the masculine black man who got corrupted first, and the mother in the home within the unit was trying to defend this thing. So I'm sure she really does recognize, as she's speaking in this one track about these masculine men who got corrupted by a certain programming, she knows as well that there's been another that followed that one. Those men, once masculine men who only faced the threat of liquor being poured down their throats by the powers that be, those men, or the ones who came after them, got hit with now something different. They had a sexual ideology poured down their throat. They came into industries where you're trying to be an actor, and there are men who wanna get in. Have y'all heard about Bashir Gray? Let me piece a clip right here and then we'll come back to Penny Lebyane.
Child, somebody better save Bryshere Gray from that OF career he just got into, because he's now doing some real wild things on there and people are not here for it. Apart from him slanging his wood in our face every day, he's now also getting deeply penetrated by other men in his videos and even going as far as munching on their hoes like it's Christmas cake. Bryshere started his OF career shortly after threatening to sue Diddy and Will for allegedly touching him inappropriately and forcing him into freak-offs. Apparently, his deadbeat mom played a huge role in this by selling him off to Will and Diddy in exchange for a huge check. As if that ain't bad enough, he was also thrown out into the industry like a piece of trash when they were done using him. And now he's selling his body on OF to afford a motel. Yeah, y'all heard that right. This man is apparently living in a motel and can barely even afford that. Okay, so in case you somehow missed out on all the madness that's been going on with Bryshere Gray these past few days, he started an OF account after being blackballed and not being cast in no movie roles for years now. Initially, when he started it, he was just teasing us with photos of his wood print and his boxers. Then he actually whipped it out and got to touching himself. This obviously got people talking because once upon a time, he was once one of the best rising actors in Hollywood. Now this man on OF twerking and playing with his wood for chicken change. As if all these videos weren't wild enough, folks started to side-eye him for potentially being gay when he began to collaborate with trans women and popular gay OF creators. The first trans woman he looked up with was the popular corn star Malika Cunt. He followed it up by posting several photos of him and gay corn actors, and this was what really shocked people. Because at first he was just making them go down on him, but in his recent videos, which I obviously can't post here, but they're very much available on his Twitter page, this man was actually getting penetrated by these men. Child, it's a mess, y'all. Now, like I said before, Bryshere was not always like this. People suspect that he allegedly got turned out by Will and Diddy, and they even came through with receipts. Even Jaguar Wright broke her silence on the whole thing, and she spilled major tea about how Bryshere's own mama allegedly sold him to Will and Diddy when he was just 17 for allegedly being their boy toy. It all went down when Bryshere was initially introduced to Will and Diddy by his then manager Charlie Mack for a mentorship program. Will was supposed to help him sharpen up his acting skills while Diddy helped him out with the music, since he apparently also wanted to be an artist. However, by the time his so-called mentorship was over, Bryshere was only violated, used, and passed around the industry. Jaguar Wright was the first person to bring this to folks' attention, when she exposed Diddy and Will for allegedly using a so-called mentorship program to lure young boys into inappropriate activities against their will. Jaguar even spilled the tea about the time that Bryshere and Meek Mill allegedly ran out of Will's house screaming for help after one of them freak-off sessions.
Bisexual, they do weird things in their house, and young men have left their house screaming to get away from them in their mentorship. Meek Mills, Bashir Gray left that house screaming. August the only one that stayed, and I guess he was really sick. He needed a dog.
I hope that wasn't too long. I hope you watched and you have some context now about what I am kind of talking about. I'm not fully here to come and address Lungelo KM. In fact, I should have split these videos. Address Penny here and then in another one, address Lungelo. Or maybe this is appropriate, this is best for this conversation to all come together. What do you think about what has happened to Bashir Gray? Was he born that way? Did he get turned? Did he get hurt into this position that he's now in? So, Penny, says Penny, if you really care about us and you want to speak to our situation, tell the black man currently the full extent of the threat and attack he's under by multinational corporations, local distilleries and breweries, advertisers, podcasters, rappers who are all selling that drink, liquor. Talk about podcasters who are promoting sexual liberation. Talk to politicians. Talk to Mbuyiseni Ndlovu, for example, who is of this belief that the young girl should go and explore themselves.
There is nothing wrong in sex. You should not, as a result of having had sex, be attacked by shame. We must actually remove shame, particularly for the girl child. The girl child is always grown in that situation of having to not be touched by the boys, not to, for themselves, also be comfortable with feeling, with having a positive relationship to their own pleasure. It's like it's a wrong thing to
talk fully, talk power, talk change. I hope the Lord gives you strength to do it, my sister. Now is the time. I really never thought that you would open up about this because, of course, you'd be opening up to attacks and scrutiny from us like this. But glad the day has come. It is what it is now. So if you've got that honesty, let's have more of it. You can become a hero. Let's listen to you.
I remember talking to Edna. Ati, Penny, we're now arresting women coming from fancy restaurants here in Sentin, but bahamba ngama Range Rover. And I started watching the trajectory happen. We went into 2010s. So we start from drinking just cider here, drinking. Now we are ordering champagne, whiskey,
hard liquor.
And now, before you know it, now we are the influencers of it. So it's done. So now our little girls want mocktails.
0%.
No, we're throwing mocktail parties for our children.
Yeah,
we're already introducing the concept of the glamour of there.
Yeah.
And now it's being done by us, the mothers, as black people. So I can't unconscientize myself. I've always been conscious. I'm aware of those things. But when now...
You've always been aware of these things. Please tell us about the effeminization of the masculine Black South African man. You know about this. Speak up, Sissy.
Now, a demographic is targeted. It's a system, guys. And you are part of promoting it
Yes.
to the general population of the poverty-stricken people of South Africa because you have influence.
Drops mic.
Drops the mic. Tell me, ladies and gents, is this a moment of clarity and honesty? Is this a true moment of self-reflection? Is this a teaching and learning moment? Or is this just another profound moment for the clipping? Because podcasters and people who go onto shows, they know it's the long form content followed by the shorts on TikTok that go viral, get seen, million views, 200,000 likes. As she's talking about those who are influencing this, is she really addressing them? Is she really self-reflective as well? Or is she pointing fingers at others? Is she in a haze of narcissism and projection? Or is she coming out? Is she really fully conscious? And as Lungelo is finding that moment to be profound, has he waken up to consider how his influence in the next shows that he will bring and his commentary, the way that he treats those stories, the way that he packages them and puts them out, is he conscious not to be what Penny Lebyane is warning about? Those who are influential, who can just do it because they can do it. I mean, who are the influential people in society? It's those two right there. She's talking about other influential people. So, clarity or another missed opportunity? Just a trendy video. Consciousness that is not really conscious. I ask you, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you like, hope you comment, hope you share, hope you subscribe. And I'll be seeing you in the next one.